So Mitt Romney makes this offer of a bet for 10 grand when he doesn't bet anything. And now he's the rich guy. Didn't I tell you this narrative was gonna start? That Mitt Romney is the guy, he's the poster guy of the Republican Party to them. And that's what they want. So what if he said, I'll bet you 10 grand. It costs almost $40,000 to have dinner with Barack Obama. And I don't see anybody out there scalping these tickets. I don't see anybody last minute like, hey, how do I get rid of all these tickets? Apparently the president sells out in New York and in L.A. and San Francisco. So there's all these people with 40 grand to drop on a dinner with the president, but Mitt Romney makes a joke about a $10,000 bet with a fellow Republican, and that's the source of some moral outrage from Democrats. Well, let's be honest, everything that's said by a Republican between now and November of next year is going to be a moral outrage by Democrats. I want to give you something. I always tell you that I come up with the best stuff. I don't run with earbuds. I don't. For two reasons. One, I think it clouds my thought process. Two, it's just dangerous when you're running on the roads and you can't hear the cars coming. This morning, I was doing a 5-mile run. I thought to myself, I woke up this morning, I was exhausted from the trip, and I'm like, you know what? I only worked out one day in the hotel. I skipped 2 days. I got to do 5 miles. And I'm running, and I was thinking about this new coalition. The New York Times really showed us some insight and thought coming from the Democrats when they say their coalition is coastal, educated whites and low-income black and Hispanics. Do you want to know what the real problem with this is? They're drawing battle lines. They're drawing battle lines here. And what they want is, they want to push the Republican Party to defend working class, uneducated, supposedly, white people. Because what happens then? The Republican Party becomes exactly what they said. It's the party of white Southerners. In other words, they're taking the supposed Southern strategy and trying to make it their own. They're basically saying, here's our coalition, leaving you this group. Well, who decided that? Who decided that every single person who happens to be Caucasian, who happens to reside on either the East Coast or West Coast, is now by proxy a Democrat? Who decided that optimistic, low-income blacks and Hispanics in this country don't look at conservatism and capitalism and family values and say, that's what I want for my family? They used to say that poor Southerners fought for the South because they were optimistic that given the opportunity, they could be like the rich Southerners that were defending slavery. Even though most Southerners personally weren't for slavery, they looked at the lives of the rich Southerners and said, well, that's what I'm defending because I want one day to have that. Now, I'm not trying to compare that to today. But it's like that old saying, class warfare, the difference between class warfare and class optimism is, in class optimism, the low-income person sees a man going by in a fine automobile and says to his kid, one day that can be you. The class warfare person sees somebody going by in a fine automobile and says, one day you'll drag him out of that car. Let's see if we can throw a rock through his window. How do we get him out of that car? And is there anything to the soft bigotry that their coalition is educated whites and low-income blacks and Hispanics? I mean, their basic assumption is that we need these overeducated white liberal elites to patronize and care for and cuddle and comfort all of these. Well, why don't they just use the word inferior? Their coalition isn't educated blacks, It's not educated Hispanics. It's not black business owners. It's not Hispanic business owners. It's not blacks and Hispanics who've joined the corporate world or have become investors. It's not blacks and Hispanics who have worked diligently to acquire property and pass that on to their families. Their coalition, according to their own words in their favorite publication, the New York Times, is white, coastal, educated, low income, black and Hispanic. So there's a little soft bigotry there, but here's the thing. The racial lines they're drawing, the assumption is this construct by them that it's not wrong to draw people into your coalition by race if they're a minority. And then there's almost this, and I wouldn't say it's properly predictable, but what they're trying to predict is if Democrats say we shop at Target, the assumption is Republicans are automatically going to say, well, we shop at Walmart. If Democrats say, well, they wouldn't say we eat at Burger King, but let's just go for that in an analogy. If Democrats become Burger King, then the automatic assumption is that Republicans become McDonald's. If Democrats go Pepsi, Republicans go Coke. And there is some truth to that. That if the Democrats claim something, Republicans look for something equal but opposite to claim. And what the Democrats are saying is, well, we're going to take smart white people and low-income blacks and Hispanics, and that'll force the Republicans to only revolve themselves around low-income or not educated or just ignorant, knuckle-dragging white people, and then they'll become the stereotype that we've constructed around them. Now, what Republicans ought to do, if they're paying attention to this, as I am, is to say, well, you can create any coalition you want, but it's not yours. You don't own anyone. You don't own the black vote. You don't own the Hispanic vote. You don't own, there's, by the way, more to this country than educated white people. Hey, are Asians lost in this someplace? Is there like somebody from Korea like, hey, did you forget about me? I think the Democrats are at the point where they're going to end up giving up on the Jewish vote. That's besides the point. Oh, and by the way, they didn't even mention the gay vote. I guess they just assumed that was theirs. But what they're trying to do, and again, every single debate is on the construct of a Democrat. They write the rules for the debate, and then they box in the conservatives who almost willingly get themselves boxed in. Again, the American person versus the American people. The fact that the Democrats see this as their coalition should mean nothing to Republicans. It should mean absolutely nothing to Republicans. Because if it does, then you're going to become the stereotype that they've created for you. But here's the thing. That's racial animosity. But they see it as a positive. Why? Because racial animosity, racism, if you will, as long as it's being done on behalf of minorities or people of color, is seen as a positive. There's no equilibrium here. If you want to say that racism or race baiting or racial division is bad, then it's bad no matter who does it and who they do it for. But the progressives in this country, the Democrats in this country, have decided that if you stoke class war, but you stoke it on behalf of blacks and Hispanics, it's a positive class war. It's not a positive class. There's no such thing as a positive class war. Like there's nothing civil about a civil war. Nothing stock about a stock car. You see what I mean? But in their minds, they've given themselves the free pass of stoking a class war because they see the positive aspects of it, even though class war on its surface is a negative thing. And the worst part is they could almost count on the Republican reaction, which unfortunately may be to say, fine. If that's your group, then everyone you've left out is in our group. Wait a second. You don't seed any of this stuff. You don't seed the black vote because Democrats have decided it's theirs. And even if the president is black, even if in the last election, many black voters voted for Obama strictly on race, you don't seed that. You still campaign. You still say, how is that working out for you? This is one of the reasons why, by the way, Herman Cain had to go by any means necessary. Anything that is a threat to their campaign poster of this coalition has to go. It has to go. They can't have it. If they claim women, Michelle Bachmann has to go. Remember they claimed women, that meant Sarah Palin had to go, and they did it until they didn't stop. Herman Cain it couldn't be allowed. Okay? It couldn't be allowed. Maybe not every Democrat operative has read Rules for Radicals or Reveille for Radicals, but simply it couldn't be allowed that the Republicans have a black on the ticket. I got news for you. If there was a black governor out there that they were considering, that person would be destroyed. If Susana Martinez, governor of New Mexico, conservative, female, Hispanic, border state, is considered, understand this. It cannot be allowed. If that's their coalition, then it cannot be allowed that the Republicans will have any member of that coalition as part of the visual aspect of this campaign. It just can't be allowed. So it might even be somewhat racist to attack Herman Cain or Susana Martinez or Marco Rubio. It's just the egg you have to break to make the omelet. And that's the reality of this. It is just the reality on the ground, and what will happen is the right people, because look, you didn't see the NAACP back Herman Cain on any level. If you think that La Raza or Maldif or Micha or any of these organizations are going to rally around Susana Martinez or Marco Rubio, you're kidding yourselves. They are the permission slip to attack them so they can't be part of the campaign, so they can maintain their coalition and its visible and visual aspects. That's the reality. All right, I'll get all the calls next. We're right. They're wrong. That's the end of the story. The arguments cannot be broken. SiriusXM Patriot.